Desert racing, one of the favorites of riding out west. Stick around, learn a little bit about desert racing. Well, welcome to Bikeguysoffroad. I just jumped into a desert race that was going on north of our town with the Motorcycle Racing Association of Northern Nevada, or we call it MRANN. And it wasn't racing. I just put the camera on the helmet and I was doing what we call sweeping, and that's in case somebody gets in a problem out on the race course or somebody there to help them. So I just jumped into the middle of the race and started following some guys around so we could take a look at some desert racing, some of the courses, what's out there and that sort of thing. If you've never been involved in desert racing before, you probably haven't rode on this kind of thing. And so we know we have a wide audience of people around that have probably never ridden in the western United States, and they think desert racing is sometimes like Baja racing. While that is desert racing, it's considerably different on the local level. As you can see here, we're not running down a course that a race truck could go down or a buggy. These are bike trails and sand washes and things, and we do come out on some wider areas, but we're just taking in some of the views. There's some of the difficult stuff to ride over. These little step downs in this ravine that we're riding in here are a lot bigger than they look in the camera, but you can get an idea of what's happening here. You drop off these big stair steps and things like that. So desert racing isn't just sand washes either. There's open areas you'll see later in the film or in this YouTube video. Some trails that are running along the mountaintops. Here's a road running up out of that bottom of that valley that we were in. And it's not all 100-mile-an-hour stuff. Sometimes people think in desert racing it's all going 100 miles an hour, and it's not. A lot of times it's just trying to be smooth, stay on the trail that's up ahead and not hit anything. So here's some real steep hillside stuff, but it's got a well-worn trail. And as we come around, you start to see some of the views of the valley below on the sides. It's actually quite pretty. It's very interesting riding up here, and you can only go so fast on some of these things. Obviously the experts will be going a lot faster than we're going in this clip, but there's things to ride around and over and through. There's vistas to look over. There's beautiful valleys we go up and down. Plenty of things to see when you're out there. Sometimes there's wildlife. We've come across in desert races herds of antelope and stuff like that. Deer and all kinds of things that you might see out there. You wouldn't think this area would be that kind of wildlife out there. There's wild horses out there, cattle, all kinds of things to see as you go. There's some of it is rocky terrain. Sometimes you get into some areas where there's whoop-de-doos that go on for a ways. And we're trying different, this is all single track here that we're running on. Here's a big wash. Some of the washes we run in are big, and here's drop downs into other washes and things like that. So these areas are fast. It's good areas to pass in if you're following somebody. We have all kinds of things to see out in the desert. It's not all the same. There's places where you have technical riding. You'd be down first gear, maybe even lifting your bike up over some rock ledges or something like that, all the way to you're running in top gear. So that's one of the things that makes desert racing different than other venues. You have to have a very wide skill set. It's not just the same everywhere you go. So there's tight washes like this one. And these drop downs are surprisingly big. You can kind of get a feel of what's going on in a desert race. Now this particular desert race was 100 miles from start to finish, but that was 2 loops. It was a 50-mile loop, and then right here is a surprisingly steep drop off. I didn't want to get hooked on that left side. There was a place where you could end on your bike, so I tried to get over to the right before I dropped in there. But this particular race was 2 50-mile loops, and they came out right at 50 miles, like 50.2 or something like that. And you go around twice to complete the full course. So the second time around, now you're familiar with these terrain. Typically in a desert racing, you don't get to pre-ride it, and you go from the start and you have no idea what the organizers are going to put you into. So you have to be kind of prepared for anything. And that's another thing that makes desert racing quite fun and interesting. It also puts a little bit of danger in it because you don't know when you come over the top of the hill what you're going to find. So it makes you ride aware. It's not just about twisting the throttle and hanging on. You have to be a little self-preservation. You keep an eye on what's going in front of you. This here is a surprisingly steep side hill. You want to stay on the trail. Otherwise you have a hard time getting your bike back up. Now a typical desert race like we're running here will run about 3 hours to 4 hours from beginning to end, depending on what class you're in and the speed that you're carrying. If you ever have a chance to go desert racing, you really should. It's quite an adventure. You're actually getting out and going somewhere and doing something and seeing some terrain. One of the things I like about desert racing also is it's all over the western United States, and I've raced desert races from northern Idaho clear to the tip of Baja, and it's, a lot of similar terrain, and then there's a lot of stuff that you may not have ever ridden before or seen before, so it's exciting that way. Makes a real adventure out of it. That valley down there, we're going across this ridge. It's a dry lake down in that valley, and we're running about 1,800 to 2,000 feet higher than that dry lake on these trails here. Obviously, sometimes we catch some pieces of road to transfer from one valley or one hill or one ravine to another. These are good areas to pass in if you need to get by. And you can also test your high-speed skills there too. Thanks for riding with us today. This is Bike Guys. Don't forget to subscribe.